What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Friday, March 1st, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 263. We were fooled again, Phil. It is the weather portion of this on the leap day, which, if you're salaried out there, you didn't get paid to work today, so congrats. But it was so cold Wednesday night into Thursday, and now it's going to be 70 on Sunday and Monday. I hate springtime. Absolutely hate it. Worst season of all time. I've said it multiple times, but this is another reason why I hate it, because you never get consistent weather, and it's just awful.
I feel like, I do have a story about Thursday morning driving.
It was stupid.
It was.
Everybody forgot how to drive, and everybody forgot to work.
So I guess I'll start with that. So
yeah, do it, because I'm mad about it.
I had to be out where you are, up in Niagara Falls, and I was covering out there, and I don't know if it just happened to be the time I was going. So I was supposed to be at work at 6 a.m. So the weather when I left my house was perfectly fine. Nothing was happening. There was literally a dusting of snow on the ground. Pretty much nothing, though. And then about 10 minutes into the drive, about 10 minutes down the boulevard, it all of a sudden turned into a complete whiteout, and I could not see anything. It was one of the worst whiteouts I've had driving. I've been in some pretty bad ones, especially a couple of years ago when I was doing a lot of travel for work up in Pennsylvania and Ohio. A few snowstorms I got stuck in on the thruway that were really bad whiteouts, but this was one of the worst ones.
You got stuck that big winter storm last Christmas, 2 Christmases ago.
Yes.
You drove home through that also, and you're in Erie County.
Yes, that was also extremely. The blizzard was by far the worst I've ever been in. I had to pull over 4 times because I literally could not see what I was doing. And I was terrified. That one was the worst. This one was up there. I think didn't help that it was dark out as well, because
yeah, that's fair.
I don't know, everything that the snow was being blown around, and with the headlights, it just kind of reflected right back at you, and you really couldn't see. I was following a truck most of the time, and I was trying to stay close enough to him because I was just kind of following wherever he was going, I was going, and he was about 3 car lengths ahead of me, and even then, there were times where I completely lost his taillights, and I was like, oh my god, he's gone, and I have no idea where I am on this road. It was bad. It was really, really bad, and didn't expect it. I think that was the other part of it. Because when I left, there was absolutely no snow. I knew, I didn't even look at the weather if it was supposed to snow. I knew it was supposed to be cold, but I did not expect at all whiteout conditions on my little 20-minute drive that made it really miserable. And huge surprise, not a good one, and it was rough trying to drive and stay on the road. It was not easy.
Well, welcome to the north, but
thank you.
Yeah, my drive in wasn't as bad weather-wise, but there was not a single plow on the road. Everybody forgot how to drive in this spurt of nice weather, so it usually takes me 25 to 30 minutes to get to work every day. It took me 40. It took me 40 minutes this morning. I was 3 minutes late. Don't write me up. But yeah, I hate this time of the year with an absolute passion. Now, I will admit that my backyard is not flooded, and that has been one bonus of this winter slash springtime. But I don't like the inconsistencies of temperature and the weather from February until May. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I like the nice days, and then it's ha, got ya. We're going to drop 30 degrees in 12 hours, and you're going to freeze your butt off because you left the house without a jacket because it was nice out, and then you have to brush off your car without gloves, without a jacket, and short sleeves, because when you left the house, you didn't check the weather, and it was nice out. And I hate everything about this time of the year. Absolutely hate it, and that's kind of why I'm miserable.
I think 65 in the morning down to 25 by the time.
Stupid.
About 8 hours in snowing. It was fun. It was a good time.
Well, that ends the weathered portion. I'm going to try to be more happy from here on out. So remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article dropped on Tuesday. His new one will drop next Tuesday. My power rankings just dropped yesterday on Thursday, week 14. A lot of movement in that. And next week, it'll be week 15. I'm winding down on the power rankings this year. I don't know why I volunteered for it because it's a lot of work, but you can also look for the breakdowns in the description of the show. We will move on to segment number 1, the Buffalo Sabres. Yes, the season's still going on. Yes, we still have to talk about them, and yes, we're still aggravated. Sunday versus Carolina, 3-2 victory in a shootout that took place after we recorded, so we do not have this one on the Monday show. You're going to listen to it now, whether you like it or not. Skinner, Power, Middlestad were the goal scorers, and Middlestad's was in the shootout, so it doesn't really count, but it counts in our hearts. UPL, 30 of 32 saves, including all 4 in the shootout. Shots were tied, 32 all, and then Tuesday versus Florida, one of the best teams in the league, lost 3-2. Cousins, Tage were the goal scorers. UPL started once again, 34 of 37 saves. Shots were 37-30 in favor of Florida.
Yeah, for the 2 games, I mean, obviously, like you just mentioned, frustrating. I'm assuming in the fact that this team that has not performed all that well for a consistent part of the season is playing against 2 of the better teams in the league and stuck with them for the most part. So frustrating that they can show occasional spurts of being a good potential top team in the league, but hasn't been consistent enough to actually really push for playoffs. I know they're still hypothetically in it and still not physically out, but it's an extreme long shot. But the Carolina game I thought was pretty good overall. I thought what they were able to do was impressive against a good team, and the power play goal was nice. I thought Thompson continued to look a little bit more like himself. Cousins has looked a little bit more like himself from last year in both games. I think both of them actually looked, again, a little bit more like themselves from last year when they've been really bad most of the season. I know Tage was injured. Cousins, I don't know what happened to him. I think he also was injured for a little bit, but still just nowhere near what they were last year, but you're starting to see some of that come back. UPL continues to look just absolutely incredible. I have pretty much no complaints about anything he was able to do. I know I think it actually looked like there was one that he wanted back, but I think it was actually tipped by the defenseman, and I think that's why he kind of looked deflated. But the shootout, I don't know how many, I forgot to look this up, in his career that he's had, but stuffing a team like Carolina in the shootout on 4 saves, like that is something that we really haven't been able to see a goalie for the Sabres do in quite a long time. Even Miller had his issues in the shootout. Levi, the few times that he was in it at the end of last season, I think he had some good plays and some bad plays, but UPL looked really good in the shootout in that one. He looked very calm, and to save all 4 to allow your team an opportunity to win that game. In both games, he really held on and was the only reason, in a way, that they should have been in it, especially the Florida game. I thought Florida, they looked okay, but Florida definitely looked like the better team, which they should. And UPL was, to me, the main number 1 reason that they were in that Florida game. He played absolutely out of his mind, and they still lost it. And as far as that game goes, Reinhart, Rodriguez, and Montour absolutely love the revenge games against the Sabres. They continue to just show out in those games. And it seems like they don't really do it the rest of the year, but whenever they play Buffalo, they kind of remind the Sabres that they used to be on that team, and they absolutely love playing against them.
Yeah, I'll talk about UPL in a second. I'll talk about Montour in a second. I don't know how you didn't mention this, Phil. I was waiting for you to mention it. The Sabres won 3 games in a row. Like, holy cow, it officially happened. They still haven't reached 4 now. That's the new mark that we have to keep track of. But 3 in a row. Well done, boys. Tip of the hat to you. You finally did it. Now you can stop hearing us talk about it constantly. But yeah, whoop-de-doo. You won 3 in a row. It took you, 58 games, 59 games, something like that to get it. But yes, Montour, I haven't mentioned this name on this show in a very long time. And I'm going to do it now. I'm going to break that streak. We're breaking streaks tonight. Ralph Krueger is the worst human that hockey has ever seen.
Oh, wow.
I hate him with passion, and I don't hate very many people. What he did to Brandon Montour that caused the Buffalo Sabres to ship him out for next to nothing, and to see what he has done in his pre-Sabres time and post-Sabres time makes me sick. It makes me absolutely sick when I see Jeff Skinner have an unbelievable season last year. I curse the name of Ralph Krueger under my breath all the time. Who I understand who made the hire, but it's disgusting. Ralph, I know I'm talking about him years and years and years after he's been fired, but it still haunts me to this day, all these other pieces that went out the door and are having unbelievable years post Sabres because of the Freddy Krueger himself, Ralph Krueger. But to go back to the main point here, UPL. My question to you, because you are the goalie guy, you were a big UPL fan when he first got brought in. I think you drifted away from him a bit like everybody else in the world, so can't hold anything against you there. But he has definitely been the best goaltender and one of the best players that the Sabres have had all season long. My question is, how do we and when do we officially crown UPL this version of UPL? Like we went over in the past, this is his best season by far. Like none of the numbers stack up in juniors and OHL, AHL, nothing wherever he's played. He has never come close to putting up these type of numbers. When can we officially feel safe in our little bunker here that the UPL we're seeing right now is the UPL that we will expect like for years to come, whether that's, still here with the Buffalo Sabres who still have Devin Levi cooking, and I know you've got a point about that, so I'm not going to touch that, but or elsewhere. Like, how can I feel confident if I'm coming to you, I'm just a normal fan, and I'm asking you, Phil, one of the co-hosts of BSC, when can I feel comfortable that UPL is this top 10 goalie in the NHL?
Yeah, I think it's going to take probably the rest of the season. If we're being honest, like if he continues this ability, especially in this really tough stretch where they're playing top talent teams in a row here, I think he's done more than enough to prove that he has the ability to be this player. And I think the big thing with him, which I've gone back to multiple times with him, is in general just kind of taking a little bit longer to really develop. I think just his injuries for so long have just derailed his development that much more than I think the average player. So you have he's still a very young goalie. And as we know, goalies take a little bit longer to develop in general. And then on top of that, he's had a pretty extensive injury history where I don't think he's really played a true full season in a long time. I think this is kind of the healthiest we've seen him in probably his career, especially in the NHL. And this is probably the most consistent we've been able to see him, not only with his play, but stay healthy. So I think we're seeing what UPL can be and likely is as a goaltender if he can remain healthy. I think you're finally seeing just what his potential really could be and what it was when the Sabres drafted him. But I honestly believe that injuries just derailed his development so much. I'm pretty sure I'll have to look it up because I was talking to someone else about this. I'm pretty sure he had some kind of insane, like, double hip surgery replacement nonsense already at his age. So, I mean, pulling up the stats right now, looking at what he's done over the last few years, I mean, the last 3-ish years, the last 2 years, he played at least 40 games, it looks like, between the Sabres and the Amerks. And then the year before that, it looked like he played closer to probably about 40 again. And the year before that, 30. So you're really just seeing him for 40 or 30 games a season. I don't think we've really seen him play consistently enough to really give you the development and the true version of himself. And I honestly believe that this is it. Like, he's been able to prove that, like, this isn't 1 or 2 games or 3 games or 4 games where you're really impressed with him. This is now 2 months of seeing him since pretty much January 1st be arguably the number 1 goalie in the entire NHL with a team that is not all that good in front of him. I mean, they're okay. We still like the Sabres enough to say that they're not the worst team in the league, but it's not a top defensive unit. It's not a top team in the NHL, and yet he continues to bail this team out left and right and keep this team in games, even though with his insane numbers, they're still not winning enough of them, but that's a different conversation. But I think if we see this the rest of the year, like if he continues to stay healthy the rest of the year, they continue to give him this amount of play time, because that's the other thing is Comrie's not even really getting in there. He's played one game in a very long time that UPL's really had to take a seat, and that was because he was slightly injured and then bounced back and came right back the next game and played great. So I think if they continue to give him that 1A look and he can continue this for the rest of the season, whatever you just said, 30 whatever games are left, I think that is your true sign of what he can be. If he can continue, January through April being one of the best goalies in the league with this team in front of him, I think that's the UPL that you might be getting for his future.
23 games left, Phil. Don't add
so
more games to the. It's much better.
I don't know. I used to say something with a 30, but
I could have. I don't know, but I think, along with the injuries, what they did to his development by up and down and not really letting him cook in the AHL, that also stunted his growth in the game as well. I am not there yet, and I know I was the official one that said send him out for a 7th-round pick. I don't care if he develops into being a number 1 goalie. He'll do that somewhere else. I don't care. I'm done with him. I officially sent in my apology note. I was dead wrong. He is playing as a top 10 goalie in this league this season, and it's been really nice to see his transformation into being the goalie that he is. But I am one of those more pessimistic people when I see these type of players that, when I completely write them off, it takes them a bit of time to get back into my good graces, because honestly, before the season, he was a waste. Like, he wasn't a NHL goalie. He didn't have very much hope with a lot of people. And this is one credit to Kevin Adams and Don Granato. They stuck with him and said, no, we see something in there. And they sure did. He's playing like, it's not like he's just getting better and luckier numbers with players in front of him. He is a much different goaltender in between the posts, in between the pipes. And I think I'm not ready to say this is him even after this year. I want to see what he looks like with the Buffalo Sabres as the 1A goaltender, like through December of next year into January. If he's still playing, maybe not even at this level, because this level is insane, but close to being a top 10, top 15 goaltender into January of next year, I will fully admit that, hey, it's time to crown UPL the franchise goaltender of the Buffalo Sabres. And then you can figure out, are you just going to go tandem like Boston does, where they got Swayman and Allmark? Are you just going to go tandem with UPL and Levi if he continues to develop in the AHL? Because it's a good problem to have if UPL is one of those top goaltenders in the league, because he's still making pennies on the dollar. He's still young, and this is the first time you've seen him. So I'm not ready to crown him all the way there, even after this end of this year. I want to see what he is able to do carrying into next year.
Yeah, being cautious is very understandable.
After I was hurt so badly by this team in the offseason, it's going to take a while to win my trust back.
Yeah, even into next year, that's kind of exactly what you're dealing with most of these players. Like you just said, a lot of them had career years, then all of a sudden they took a huge step back. But I do think that we've seen a true change in what he is. My
Agreed.
printer is currently making noises, and I apologize. It's right next to you. So if you hear that, I'm sorry. It's got a mind of its own apparently right now. So, but I do think that there's been a change in how he plays. Like you mentioned, like originally, I think he overcommitted a lot and things like that. He looks a lot more in control. He looks like he's using his size extremely well. He's still making out of this world saves, but he's not over committing, he's not over pursuing. Like he just seems so much more in control, so much calmer. He looks like he knows what he's doing. He looks like he understands the game a little bit more. He's like up to the speed of everything. So I think you've truly seen just the development of a player, and I think you can see that on the ice, where I think like a player like Tage, for example, I think like as he was getting better, I don't know if he necessarily got better as a player or if the points just started flowing and the offense flowed around him. Like that year they had, everybody did great. So, obviously, with everyone else's numbers going up, if you're on that line, your numbers are going to go up. So, I don't know if Tage necessarily, talent-wise, took a huge step forward last year, whereas UPL, I think you can really see he's still developing. I think you've seen a difference in what he looks like on the ice.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think I have anything else more to add to the Buffalo Sabres. I know you have a quick Devin Levi update if you want to crank out that one, but I mean, standings wise, I don't even know why we're going to be talking about this. There are 2 games. They have 2 games in hand over the Lightning, who are in the second wild card spot, but they're still 11 points back. They'd still have to jump the Devils, Capitals, Penguins, Islanders, and they're sitting at 58 points through 59 games. I mean, it's a real gross. If they can get up to, 82 points, I think it'll be a pleasant surprise based on what type of season they have. But, man, just win at home, man. They still absolutely dog garbage at home. Like, 13, 16, and 1. They stunk at home last year, too. Like, most teams play better at home. This team plays better on the road, and I absolutely don't get it. Maybe they're just afraid that the Boo Birds are going to come down and, Kyle Oposo, and they don't even raise their sticks to the crowd anymore because they were mad that the crowd was chanting "Fire Don Granato." Whoop-de-doo. Grow a little thicker skin there, you little cowards on the ice. If you can't handle the heat, play better. Shocking. Watch what happens with that crowd if you actually start playing better. You saw glimpses of it last year, and then you let everybody down by its playoffs this year. And, good luck with that.
If you can't handle the heat, the ice is going to melt on you.
And then you're going to sink, and we won't have to watch anymore.
I did hear that they did salute after the Hurricane game again, so there was that. So, quick Levi update for what he's doing in the AHL. I think you and I both agree that we hope he stays there the rest of this year, and honestly, possibly even into next year. We'll see how he's doing in the offseason and whatnot. But in his last 9 games, he has a .931 save percentage, so just really good to see him actually developing down there, actually performing. I know he's still, by the numbers, had a few up and down games. He's had a few really high save percentage games and a few that are still under 90%. So he's still a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, he's playing with an AHL team, so, who knows what's actually going to happen. I think he had 50, I don't know, it's not in front of me, 51 or 52 saves of 53 in one ridiculously insane game that he only let in 1 goal and had 50-plus saves. So he's definitely doing better, and I think he started his first 5 games down there pretty rough. So it's good to see him developing, and it's good to see the Sabres leaving him down there, and good to see the Sabres actually give UPL the full reins and not just be splitting time with Comrie as well.
Yeah, I'll give it to them. They finally got to the point of doing what they should have been doing.
Yes.
Since like November or December, yep. And credit to them. They're actually doing something good. But Phil, before we dive into the next segment, take it away for Tap That Tap Room.
Yes, they are our first sponsor. We're going to keep saying that until they're not, which will be the next time around, I guess. But they are at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda. It is the Buffalo's first woman-owned self-pour bar. If you don't know what that is, it gives you the opportunity and a way to be the bartender. You kind of go through 30 consistently rotating taps of beer, ciders, sour seltzers, and malt beverages. Choose what you want. You can have a little bit in a taste test. You can be really bold and pour yourself a full glass and just wing it like PK tried to do and kind of backfired a little bit. But if you want to just try all of them or try a couple of them, you have that ability. And you can sit down with your favorite new one and see what it is all about.
And tonight, that is TONIGHT, spelled it right, nailed it first try. They are having the Buffalo Bandits watch party. Buffalo is way out in Vancouver, but you don't have to travel all the way out there. You can just travel down to Tap That Tap Room. The sound on the TV will be up. The drinks will be flowing. And if you don't have season tickets and you don't have tickets to the next home game, guess what? You got the opportunity to win tickets there because they give away tickets. When you're there watching away games, they give tickets to the next home game. So guess what? You have the opportunity to join Phil and I in Banditland the following, I think it's Friday or Saturday, whenever they face Saskatchewan next week. Friday. There you go, the 8th. There you go. Nailed it. So, go on down, Tap That Tap Room tonight. 10 o'clock, late game, but guess what? There's still going to be a ton of Buffalo Bandits fans there, and you can talk to them and listen to the game at the same time.
Yep, you can check out their Facebook page and their website for all their posted events. They recently had 2 this week that were General Trivia with the Geeks and Tap Attack with 1911. They had a lot of free samples from 1911, a really cool event that they do also. And you can also check out their website to see what they have on Rotating Tap.
So, Phil, let's dive into our next segment here, Buffalo Bandits. Before we go through the preview, we share a bunch of stuff on Facebook, Instagram. That's how we spread who we are out there because we're a smaller podcast. How else in this modern age are we supposed to get our names out there? And more because this is the hot topic. This is the low-hanging fruit of the said Buffalo Bandits tree. We grabbed some numbers off a member of the Facebook group for the Buffalo Bandits, and I do not want to put their name out here because I don't know if they want to, but I'm giving you credit, you person that posted this in the Buffalo Bandits groups, because, like I said, I don't want to put your name out there in case you don't want it, but I'm giving you credit right here. Since 2000, and I guess I should mention, this is Face-Offs for those that don't know. And, this is the topic of conversation for all year because people care about Face-Offs so much all of a sudden. And I don't understand why, because Phil and I have mentioned it for 3 years. This podcast has been going 3 years, what our feelings on Face-Offs are. But for those of you who are still letting it get under your skin that the Buffalo Bandits are not winning face-offs, and you think that is the reason that they're losing, here are some cold, hard facts to slap you right in that face. Since 2006, teams that win the face-off battle, are 784 and 757. 51% of the time, since 2006, if you win the face-off battle, you win the game. Yeah, it's pretty much a coin toss. Here's even better. Since 2019, until now, until last weekend, teams that win the face-off battle are 194 to 207. So since 2019, if you win the face-off battle, you have a more chance of losing the game than you do winning the game. So don't give me all these stats and all these personal opinions that the Buffalo Bandits are losing because they're not winning a face-offs, because the stats don't back it up. As we have said here for years, it would be great to have the ability to win face-offs in the dying moments of the game when you need the ball. We saw Ian McKay do that versus Georgia. That's what we're missing with Max Adler being around. But in the grand scheme of the game, regardless of who wins or loses the draw, the team has nearly a 50-50 shot at winning based on all those stats, not your personal opinions on it. Again, if you think face-offs matter, more power to you. Keep fighting the good fight. But I will remain on the side that I do not care who wins the initial face-off, because Ian McKay is doing a great job of causing those loose balls. You pick up those loose balls, guess what? You get a W next to your name of winning a face-off. Go do that and shut everybody up. For God's sake, shut everybody up. I can't stand seeing the name face-offs anymore. It's driving my head through a wall dealing with this.
Yeah, there's 2 other points I want to make. I mean, we do agree that face-offs do matter when they matter. There's very few times in the game, mainly at the end of the game and possibly overtime. There was a game recently, I think it was the Halifax game, where they were trying to come back at the end, and you saw that because they weren't going to win the face-off, they took a quick shot knowing that Halifax was probably going to be able to kill 30 seconds because they have arguably the best face-off guy in the entire league. So even if you had Max Adler, you're probably still not winning that face-off. But the other point I want to make is that the Bandits were 14-4 in 2019. They were 7-4 in the season that was cut short, and they were 14-4 in 2022 when Adler only played 9 games. So clearly they have no problem winning without Max Adler on the team. And in 2019, they made it all the way to a championship without a face-off only type player. So not the issue. And like you said, would we love to have one like next year in the draft, because you and I both agree that there's not really one available, and the teams that do have them aren't going to give them up, the few that are out there. But next year in the draft with their 3 first-round picks, if there's some incredible face-off guy that's going into the draft that can also play maybe a little bit of defense, maybe a little bit of offense, and the Bandits want to draft him, we will be thrilled to have him, and it will be very exciting for the team. But right now, it's not the answer. It's not what they need, and it's not the reason they're 5-5.
Yeah, I mean, even the people that are saying, well, last year you had Max Adler. If faceoffs didn't matter, why did they keep Max Adler on the lineup the last two? Because they had a completely stacked team that didn't really have any holes besides getting healthy, so you had the ability to keep a faceoff man like Max Adler on your team. This team is 5-5 on the brink of not being in a playoff spot. Adding a faceoff man and taking out one of your depth players on either their defense or forwards is not the answer. Like, I really don't get it when you're seeing the defense give up 14, 15, 16 goals week after week after week. You're not thinking, oh, is the offense going on goal droughts? Is the defense just not holding up their end of the game? Like, what's going on in the goaltender? Your first instinct is, we're not winning faceoffs. That's the problem. Like, yeah, they're not winning faceoffs. That can be an issue. But in the major list of things for why the Buffalo Bandits are 5-5, you have to grab a magnifying glass and like skip through 17 sheets of paper to find faceoffs for me. That's the last thing I'm saying about faceoffs either.
PK,
like I'm
face-offs?
done fighting the good fight. It's over. I'm done mentioning the word faceoffs because I strictly just do not care.
I do think this season, though, from what we have witnessed in the social medias, that I do think it is a little bit. There's more people fighting the good fight. That faceoffs don't matter. I will.
Matt Vince is getting a nice break this season though, because everybody's blaming faceoffs and not Matt Vince.
True.
Telling him he should retire and he's too old and stuff like that. So that's one of the positives.
Good for Vince.
Oh, you Phil. I know you had a couple.
Okay. We're moving
topics.
on to me. Okay,
Yeah.
so
yeah, I'm done with. Like I said, I'm done with faceoffs. You're not going to hear me complain or really address the faceoff controversy, low hanging fruit of the people out there that are complaining about it. I'm done with it. That was my last statement on it. Those stats prove it. If you don't like it, tough cookies.
So Dane Smith, we know he's struggling this year on the ability
Just in goals.
to score.
Yes.
He's still extremely good, and we have no problems against him here whatsoever. He's incredible, and we need him on the team. But as far as his scoring ability goes, it is struggling a little bit, and thanks to Spotify, I think I may have discovered what's bothering him this year and what he needs to switch up. So in 2016, he scored his record-setting 72 goals. Do you know what other season he had 40-plus goals?
I don't think he reached it last year, did he?
No, it was not last year.
Was it the year before?
It was the year before. He had 41 goals in 2022, and his goal song was Lip Gloss is Poppin', and I think the key to
both
Dave
years?
Smith is to go back. What?
Both years?
2020? No, not both years, but the.
I was gonna say
his second highest goal scoring ability. He had Lip Gloss is Poppin', and that was the season that he had his record breaking points as well. So I think he just needs to switch up his goal song. I don't think he's inspired this year by hearing his own goal song, and I think he needs to switch it up, and that's what's gonna let him score some more goals again.
I was going to say, like,
it'd be incredible if it was both years.
If he had 72 goals in 2016 and you said, 41 in 2022?
Yes.
And his goal song was the same one in both years, I will drive down there it is 7:57. I will drive down to the arena right now. I'll break in. I'll find out where. I won't really break in. Don't come arrest me. But I will find out where they're playing the goal songs and just change his song. Like, if that's all it takes to fix it, I would have done it.
I'll have to scroll way back. It took me. Well, I did this a long time ago when they first announced the goal songs for this year. I think I had the last 3 years posted in one of our group chats, so that was actually easy to find. 2016, that'd be a hunt.
It's a while ago.
That would be a hunt. The other thing to go over, which is pretty much just one player or two players. So with all the injuries the Bandits have had recently, I just wanted to ask you one very kind of specific question. So the practice squad players currently, with all the injuries, it was kind of got me thinking, like, who isn't being called up? And with all the injuries they've had opportunities to call up pretty much whoever they wanted on any side of the ball. They even brought a player like Emerson Clark in instead of calling some of these players up. I still think that's questionable, but we don't have to get into all that. But Sam La Roue is the big one I want to discuss, and I think Christian Watts would be the other one, and Christian Watts would be in there because what do you think's going on with La Roue? Why has Watts possibly already passed him as far as a call-up goes, and why is La Roue not getting any opportunities. We know that he can play a little bit of defense because that's what he was kept on as with the expansion draft. We know he plays offense in reality. So the opportunities with injuries has been there for him to get an opportunity this season, and they skipped over him for Christian Watts. They've skipped over him for Emerson Clark, and I mean, McKenzie's a staple on defense. Obviously, I'm not going to say La Roue's going to play over him, but there's other players getting into the lineup when La Roue is not, and La Roue's been around a lot longer. What do you think is going on there? And do you think, I guess the other option or thought is, do you think he could possibly be a trade chip at some point coming up to boost some kind of deal?
Yep.
Okay.
That's my answer. I honestly don't know. Like,
It's very
I
strange.
don't
Like, they
know.
love him so much, and he, like, why do you get, like, passed already so quickly?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been. Let me pull this up. Where is he on here? He was drafted in 2020, second round pick, 19th overall. He's played in two seasons, quote unquote, in 4 games. Hasn't really done much in those games. They were able to protect him in the expansion draft as a defender because he played the majority of his time as a defender during that time. I really don't know. I was kind of expecting him to be that first man up if there's any injuries to the right-handers, and it didn't happen when Tehoka Nanticoke went down. It was Christian Watts getting the opportunity. And then Christian Watts goes out of the lineup, and because Tehoka Nanticoke is back, and he's still staying down there. Now, Matt Spanger did get put on the IR, and they called up Sam La Roue. My biggest question now is, because we don't go to the practices, we haven't seen Sam La Roue in the lineup all season long. Are they trying to transition him into being a big body defender, or are they still envisioning him as a forward? Are they trying to take a more Dane Smith approach with this? Because remember, Dane Smith was more of a transition player to start his career rather than just this forward that you're seeing now. So what is their game plan, and what are they doing with Sam La Roue that made it so Christian Watts jumped him on the order, the pecking order? Is it just because Christian Watts just officially passed him? Are they trying to put him into a different position? Like, he's been kind of like that odd man out where there's so many other pieces moving around. You got Zach Belter back, you got Frank Brown back, you're waiting for Adam Bomberry to come back, you got a bunch of players injured, and it took another injury, 4 guys on the IR, to finally be able to call up Sam La Roue. And personally, I would be shocked if he's in the active lineup come, Friday night, tonight. I think it'll be Carter McKenzie. So I don't know. Long story short, I don't know, Phil. I really don't know. We had him on the podcast like 2 years ago, I think it was, for an interview. He was still in school. He was still playing football, and that was a big reason why he was just pretty much on the practice squad, because he was still going to school. He didn't know if he was going to be making all the practices, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if he's still in school. Like, I don't know. I really, it's a puzzling thing, because at least up through when Las Vegas came in, like 2 off seasons ago, they valued him enough to protect him, because they still viewed him as this really young player who's still really raw, that has a very good future ahead of him. And he has had some good summer ball numbers. They just haven't transitioned into the NLL yet. And I know he's still very, very young. He is 21, going to be 22 this year. So super, super. I mean, he's younger than Christian Watts. Like, think about that. He's actually young, 3 years younger than Christian Watts. So I don't know if he's still growing into his NLL body. But again, long story short, I don't know. I really have no idea what the game plan or what is going on with the aforementioned Sam La Roue.
Yeah, it just seems strange. Even for Watts to get 2 opportunities before La Roue gets 1. Like, I can understand 1 to see what you got in that kind of player. I know Watts has been around a lot of these players because of the indoor league that they play in upstate. Like, a lot of the coaches he had were Bandits players, so I get that he's kind of a part of the team. But, I mean, La Roue, like you mentioned, has been literally on the team and a part of the team for quite a while. So to see Watts get in 2 games with La Roue not getting in any yet. Just strange. Like you said, maybe they are trying to transition him more to a transition player or more of a defender who can play a little bit of offense, but just puzzling as far as what's going on with him. I'm sure he's still very valued on this team, but just a little strange not to see him get any action with the amount of injuries that are starting to pile up.
And before we actually, what was that?
Nope. I was going to say the last topic
okay.
I have is post our breakdown, so we can talk about that.
Okay, perfect. So before we actually do get into the preview, we have another surprise for everybody out there. Phil, we have a second sponsor on the show, first time on the show, our second sponsor of the show. Take it away for our newest sponsor. Thank you for supporting the BSC.
Yeah, our second sponsor ever is Mr. Sizzles, the one and only. You've seen them a lot recently with a lot of what they've done for the Bandits. They are currently just at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, New York, but they will be opening 2 more locations very soon, 6409 Transit Road in Clarence and 1 in Hamburg as well in 2024. They are currently open 7 days a week, 11 to 11, with a brunch menu on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
And quick backstory on them. When we were talking about this, 6 to 8 months ago, and possibly bringing sponsors in this show, my number one to try to get a sponsorship with was Mr. Sizzles. I am not just saying this because they're a sponsor on the show. I absolutely love this place. Not only can you get one of, if not the city's best burgers, they have a full bar inside. What is insane to me, They've only been doing this since 2021, and I think myself, PK, right here talking to you, I think I've been going that long as well. I thought it was open well before me and Brooke found them. Wrong. Absolutely love this place.
You're an OG of Mr. Sizzles.
I am an OG to Mr. Sizzles.
Yeah, they use eco-friendly recycled materials for their bags, cups, and straws. Their milkshakes are incredible with plenty of options available. We got spring eventually getting us some warm weather, like PK mentioned, maybe 70 coming up this weekend. A milkshake sounds pretty good.
And if you have any vegans in your life like I do, my wife Brooke is vegan, plenty of options there. So I know a lot of people are going more plant-based food options around the whole country of the recent past years. They accommodate perfectly there. They also have vegan milkshakes as well. So if you somehow have been living under a rock, like Phil was mentioning earlier, you see Mr. Sizzles everywhere now. They are partnered with the one and only the Great Dane Smith and created the Great Dane sandwich. It's a fried chicken sandwich with hot honey, chipotle sauce, crispy onions, avocado, and pepper jack cheese on a brioche bun. Delicious. Absolutely delicious.
Yeah, I know we've been a little hot and cold on the avocado take, but it still is an incredible sandwich, even if you don't love avocado. If you want to check out more of their menu or simply find more information about them, you can follow them on their socials and at MrSizzles.com.
And before we move on, I just want to, we said this earlier on before the sponsors came on, but we're not going to have anybody on that we really don't feel passionate about. So when we're talking about this and we're promoting them, we truly, honestly, we're talking about our own emotions through here because we've gone to these places. We've enjoyed these places. They're run by great people. So everything we're saying is not just lip service. We truly do mean it. So let's dive into the preview here. Buffalo is in Vancouver, long trip there. Guess what? You got to stay up late for this one. Friday tonight, 10 p.m. Buffalo's coming in at 5-5. Vancouver 2-8. Buffalo second in the league in scoring at 12.6. Vancouver is dead last at 9.5. You can kind of flip those numbers around. Buffalo is 12th in the league in goals against at 12.6. Vancouver coming in 8th, 11.4. And Phil, Buffalo is 2-0 all-time versus the Vancouver Warriors. The last time they faced off, hold on to your butt, February 7th, 2020, 15-8 victory. This was pre-COVID. Think about that. Last time these two teams squared off.
Yeah, it's hard to hold on to my butt when I'm sitting on it, but that's all right. It's been a little bit since these two teams played, and it's another thing that we love about the unified standings. It gives the opportunities for teams like this to play each other, like you mentioned, haven't played in 4 years, and I mean, even that 2-0 all-time versus Vancouver. I mean, this unified standings just gives exactly what the NLL was looking for, which was every single fan to be able to see every single team in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's not home, you can watch the Bandits play the away game against this team. They got a really cool arena. They got lights on their boards when they score. Hopefully they do not light up all that often. But this team is 2-8 for a reason. I know it is a game the Bandits absolutely cannot overlook. Pretty much the rest of their season with them sitting at 5-5, they cannot overlook. I mean, honestly, they don't have to win out, but they need a lot of wins to make sure that they solidify themselves in playoffs and hopefully top 4. I think they still have a shot at that. As far as the top 2 go, I don't know. It's going to take some help and pretty much a perfect season, but you got to start with this game. Just because they are last place at 2-8 does not mean you can overlook them, and the defensive numbers this year just look so gross. I mean, every time we kind of go over the goals against and goals for Buffalo, obviously goals for looks great. Goals against, so 12th is just so not like Buffalo, and it's just a really awful looking stat. But like you mentioned, Vancouver comes in at 9.5 goals for, which is last place. So huge game for the defense, and we will see who's in net. I don't want to just throw Shanahan out there in case they switch, but whoever's in net, I think the defense played really, really good last game. I think whatever their new system is seemed to work pretty well, so we'll see what happens with all these injuries. I think the lineup's going to be one of the more interesting things to look at for Buffalo, and like you mentioned, La Roue getting activated, but we don't know if he'll actually be in the starting roster. So a lot of moving pieces for Buffalo, but this is a huge game for the defense to hopefully hold a team under 10 would be great. Don't let Vancouver get over their literal season average in goals for.
Yeah, and since this is you kind of mentioned it with the unified standings, because that is in place and Buffalo has 8 games left, this is one of those teams that obviously you haven't seen in a while, so this part of the show is kind of important. If you're more of a relaxed Buffalo Bandits fan, you might not know some of the players that are playing in Vancouver because their games are later. They were on the West Coast for years and years and years on the Western Conference, and they weren't very good for a while. So why would you pay attention to a team that's on the West Coast that isn't very good? And you don't really pay attention to those type of teams if you're just more of a relaxed fan. And that's perfectly fine. That's why we're here. So really pay attention to some of these players here. They do have some pieces. Even being 2-8, Kurt Malowski can coach these players up. It's strange seeing a Kurt Malowski team sitting at 2-8. But for the lefties forwards, Adam Charlambides, he is their best player by far, number 8. Riley Lowen, number 10. Ryan Martell, number 96. The old fan favorite here, Brad McCulley, he was scratched late into the game, or right before the game last week. He's wearing number 43 out there. And then for the righties, Keegan Ball, he is their best righty on this team, number 45. Kevin Crowley, remember him? He was in San Diego last year, and before that he was in Calgary, number 21. And then Kyle Killen, number 61. They have some pieces, but as you can kind of tell when we're going to go over some of these numbers, their offense has been sputtering and is not one of the better offenses in the league, obviously, by the goal scoring. But they were right in it with Toronto last week. You can't give this team any type of edge, especially Charlambides, because he can light the lamp when he has to.
Yeah, this team's a little bit strange with their offense. Like you just mentioned, they have a few good players, but, I mean, this is going to sound quite mean, I guess, but for example, if they were on the Bandits, they would be secondary pieces, right? Like Keegan Ball is a very good lacrosse player for what he is. He is very talented. Same with Charlambides, a very talented forward, but on a talented team, would they be number ones? Probably not, but on this team they are. So just kind of what they are. But Charlambides is a very good lacrosse player. Keegan Ball also has the ability to flash. So those two by far are the ones you have to watch out for. And if this defense is going to pick on anyone, like you mentioned, I think Charlambides is the one to try to lock in on, shut down. From what I was able to see in their recent games, this team doesn't really have a lot of strong outside shooting, but they have the ability to get inside. They like doing the plays behind the net. They like being able to dunk. They're a very fast-paced offense that, again, just loves to get inside. So if the defense can force this team like they did last game to Albany to stay on the outside, I think Vancouver will struggle to score. They're just not a very good outside shooting team. They have a couple pieces that can do it, but not really. They just love being inside and around the net, behind the net, whatever they can do to get in there. So I think if the defense can force these offensive players to the outside, it's going to make it really tough for Vancouver.
So the transition and the defense, Reed Bowering, number 28, he's one of their better players, but he was also a late scratch. So you're going to have to keep an eye on both McCully and Bowering if either of them play. But 7 caused turnovers in 9 games, 4, 3, and 7. He's also a threat in the transition game. Matt Beers came over from, I think it was San Diego through Panther City, if I remember correctly, in the offseason. Number 2, rookie. Braden Lady, number 27, he's having an unbelievable year. Another rookie who's having a great year, number 16, Owen Grant. Ryan Dilks is still causing so many turnovers with 26. Steven Charlembeau, number 19. Chris William, number 17. He is their main faceoff guy, but they did just sign, I'll find his name real quick in a second, but Chris William, if the faceoff man that they just signed doesn't play, this is the guy who's winning 48 or 47% of his faceoff. That's why you're talking. I'll try to find out who that faceoff man is.
Yeah, their goals against isn't terrible. It's not one of the best in the league, but their defense really isn't all that bad. They did just have a goalie change as well, which we'll get into in a moment. But for the most part, their defense has been doing a pretty decent job. I know Toronto doesn't have the best offense, but holding them to 9 goals, and even if it was 5 goals into the fourth quarter before Toronto really went on a bit of a run to win it. But they have the ability to shut teams down. And again, Toronto's offense isn't quite what the Bandits is, but at the same time, it's a decently put together defense. I mean, like you said, they have a few pretty solid rookies coming in here. Then they have a few established players in Bowering, Beers, and Dilks that are just still going to cause some havoc. And then along with the rookies, they have a pretty decent defensive transition unit. So not one you can overlook. And with the goalie change, I think it'll be a little bit tougher to score on them than their 2-8 record kind of suggests.
Tyrell Hammer Jackson, he was on the team last year. He was signed as an official Fogo, so it'll be interesting to see if he is activated. He's on the evaluation list currently, so they'll have to make a move if they want to put him on the active list. But yeah, this team could be a completely drastic change of a team if they had consistent goal scoring. That's what's holding them back. I like a lot of their pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Beers is always great. Dilks is always great. Those pieces that Kurt Malowski brought in to play the defensive side of the ball have been great additions. And then you had Lady and Grant, who's the up-and-comers on the back end. If there is a piece to this team that I really have been impressed with, it is the defensive side of the ball. So Buffalo really has to keep an eye on it. They have 5 guys with 10 plus turnovers, and they have 10 guys with 5 plus caused turnovers. They got 2 guys with 10 plus block shots, and 7 of them have 5 plus. They also have 5 shorthanded goals. So this defensive unit is nothing to take lightly. Like you said, they just held Toronto to 9 goals. And then we were mentioning with the goalies here, there was a goalie change last week. It was kind of a surprise by a lot of people. Aaron Bold was the veteran go-to guy to start the year, but because of where they were 2-7 going into last week, they wanted to give the younger guys some time, and he actually played very well. Aiden Walsh, he's 0-3 with a 10.49 goals against and 75% save percentage, so those numbers might not flash, but last week, it was 2-2 at halftime, and it was 5-5 tied in the fourth quarter. He only let in 9 goals versus Toronto. Like I said, this defense in front of him is very good, so I could see this being more of a low-scoring game come the end of Friday night, early Saturday morning, because it is a 10 o'clock game here in the East Coast.
Yeah, a lot of the goals that were scored against them were on the inside in the last 2 games, so something to kind of keep an eye on, but at the same time, mid-range and outside were 6 and 5 compared to 10 in tight. I mean, obviously, it's 10 and 11, 10 in tight, and then 11 from a little bit outside and mid-range. So a pretty even split for what they're allowing, but at the same time, like you mentioned, they can be stingy at times. Their penalty kill in the last 2 games was 3 for 10. Their power play was 2 for 5, so their special teams has also been putting it together. Power play 2 for 5 is not terrible, not great, but penalty kill 3 for 10 is really impressive. So something that the Bandits will absolutely have to keep an eye on, and hopefully, my goodness, do not go in the penalty box 8 times like you did last game.
Phil, we went over what the team numbers are, the players to watch in this one. What is your prediction for Buffalo v. Vancouver tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time?
I really want to give Vancouver only 9 goals because I just want to see the defense hold the team under 10. I don't know if they do it, though. I'm going to say...
Has not happened since Colorado.
Yep.
They've given up at least 13 every game since.
All right, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to go with 13-10. We'll go 13-10.
Phil, I have to tell you something.
No.
You know how we almost never pick the same score?
Oh, no.
Literally 10 seconds before you gave me that score, I changed mine. It was 13-10.
Ooh, thank goodness you changed it.
And I changed it because I listened to us talk. I listened to our show, and I adjusted my score. I went from 13-10
12.
because I went to 12-8. I think it's going to be a more low-scoring game. I think it's going to hit the under. So if you're a betting man, I would hit the under because Vancouver, I think, has a very good defense. If they can't get to Aiden Walsh and get in front of him, I think this defense can lock them down. And, you know, I think this is a get-right game for the defense. I don't know if it's a get-right game for the offense to bounce back, but I do still think they're going to walk out of Vancouver with a win because they need to win. This is a must-win game.
So that was my other question for you. I mean, I am wearing my Bandits championship shirt because I think they need to start playing like the champions that they are and remember that they are the champions and start acting like it. But at the same time, that was going to be my question. If you lose this game, are you officially hitting the panic button on this team?
Not panic, but I am kissing any home first-round playoff game goodbye.
That's fair. So,
I mean, you're sitting at a team right now. You're at 5 wins. You're behind Panther City, who has 5, and Georgia, who has 6. But in those top 4, you got Halifax, who's 7-4, San Diego's 7-3, Albany, who's 8-2, and Rock, who are 8-2. So you're at least 2 games back of, you know, the San Diego Seals, and you do have the edge over them, but you're technically 2.5 back of Halifax because you don't have the head-to-head. That's what's going to kill this team, is you're losing so many of those head-to-head matchups, and you're sitting at 5-5. So if you lose this one, you might drop out of a playoff spot this week, but I'm not hitting the panic button of missing playoffs, but I'm hitting you're not getting a home playoff game to start the playoffs.
That's fair. And a lot of these teams that I'm going to mention really quickly only have 3 wins, so am I actually concerned about them? Not really, but as far as unified standings go and just how crunched up things are now with the Bandits, there are 8 teams with either 5 or 6 losses. So yes, the Bandits have the wins to go with some of those losses because teams have played less games. Like you're looking at Philadelphia's 3-6, Rochester's 3-6, the Rush are 3-5. So yes, the Bandits have 5 wins, but I mean, it's just insane how many teams are pretty much, you know, within a game or 2 of the Bandits for that 8th spot and higher. So really need to win and really need to separate themselves from the 6, 7, 8 pack a little bit, including Georgia and Panther City that, like you mentioned, have leapfrogged them recently.
Phil, we have 2 sponsors on this show, but I really need to get this segment sponsored because it's time for everybody's favorite segment of the show. It is the fastest milestone minute. All of these possible milestones can be found on X at Buffalo Sports Co. We post them on the lead up to all the games, so if you missed one and you don't want to listen back, you can check for them there. And away we go. Chris Cloutier is 2 goals away from 100 for his career. He averages 1.58 a game. Josh Byrne is 1 shot away from 700 for his career. He averages 8.63 a game. Chase Frazier is 6 shots away from 500 for his career. He averages 7.6 a game. Steve Perillo is 14 loose balls away from 1,300 for his career. He averages 6.12 a game. I didn't want to mention this, but Ian McKay got it last week, and I missed that one, so I want to include Steve Perillo here. Justin Martin is 1 cost turnover away from tying David Brock for 9th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 0.53 a game. Matt Vince, if he does play, he is 19 saves away from... I'm screwing up here. From passing Anthony Cosmo for the most in Buffalo Bandits history. And it is officially Dane Smith assist watch time. He is 5 assists away from tying John Tavares for 10th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 61, which was set back in 2007. He is 6 away from tying Josh Byrne for 9th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 62, set back in 2022. And he is 8 assists away from tying John Tavares for 8th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 64, set back in 2001.
Sorry, I don't know where the calculator is on my computer. I was going to try to see if he's still on pace to get over 100. I don't know.
He is. I believe he is on pace for exactly 100.
Okay. That's fair. Okay. I feel like you gotta start, especially just moving forward in his career. I feel like you have to wait until fifth in the Bandits season because he's gonna crush through most of those. But I think the
Very
biggest
true.
one to me on this is Justin Martin because David Brock needs to go away forever. Get him out of here.
Bye-bye.
Get him out of here. He left the Bandits in a real bad way, and I don't like it. And as far as sponsoring this segment, I think you need to find a sponsor that is all about speed. NASCAR came first to my head, but they're not going to sponsor the show. But you need I don't know, some restaurant or delivery service that's all about that. Their slogan has something about being fast.
That's fair. I could see that. Maybe DoorDash.
Okay, well,
You can get a little DoorDash here.
contact DoorDash
Grubhub?
customer service,
Yeah. You want to sponsor a 1-minute segment on our show? Go for it.
please.
But yeah, I just did the quick math. He's on pace to average 100 or to get 100.8 assists. I don't know how he's going to get the 0.8, but if anybody can, it's Dane Smith.
He will in his last game somehow.
So we'll go over the final part here because we are right around the hour mark. NLL Outlook. There are 9 games this weekend spanning 3 days, and I believe 2 teams have doubleheaders. A lot. So here we go. Georgia versus Halifax Friday at 7 p.m. San Diego and Panther City are right after that, Friday at 8 p.m. And the same time Buffalo's playing, Toronto is in Las Vegas at 10 o'clock. If Las Vegas upsets Toronto, I will run around the block in a Santa hat. Calgary versus Philly, 1 o'clock on Saturday. So if you guys have no plans, 1 o'clock on Saturday, that will be a good game. New York and Albany Saturday at 7 p.m. Saskatchewan is in Colorado, 9 o'clock Saturday night. This is the biggest game of the weekend right here. Toronto versus San Diego, the 2 top teams in my power rankings, square off Saturday at 10 p.m. And then the final game of the weekend slate, Rochester is in Panther City. Rochester trying to save their season, Sunday at 4 p.m.
This weekend has an absolutely insane amount of implications for
Very important.
the standings and just moving forward. And every single one of these teams playing pretty much, other than Vancouver, yay Bandits, pretty much has something to play for, like you said. And like I just mentioned earlier, I mean, Philadelphia 3-6, Rochester 3-6. They're still trying to save their season. They're only 2 wins outside of a playoff spot right now, so it's really not that drastic of them if they can string some wins together. I mean, yes, right now it looks like a tall task, but still they're in it. Same with Colorado, same with the Rush. I mean, everyone above, again, Vancouver pretty much to me has a shot still at playoffs. So all of these games are massive. Even teams like Georgia and Halifax trying to stay at the top. Like you mentioned, Toronto and San Diego, that's a humongous battle for potential first place overall implications. So a lot of playoff implications and standing implications in this ridiculously high amount of games weekend. And it's going to be nuts. Bandits have to take care of business, but then we will kind of wait and see how the rest of standings fall together after this week.
Yeah, I mean, not only is a lot of teams trying to stay in it, but if you're looking for trade partners, this is a good week to watch because Rochester's on a 6-game losing streak. If they lose, they fall to 3-7.
Smith.
Probably looking to sell. Same with Philly. They would be falling to 3-7. You know, Las Vegas is still right in it. They could get up to 5-6. But there are a few teams in here that, with a loss, even Saskatchewan falling to 3-6,
Right.
and their march, and it's stupid. They got like 10 games in 50 days or something like that. It's an absolutely juggernaut finish to the season for a team like that. But even Colorado, I was mentioning like Tim Edwards as a possible face-off man if you're really looking to bring one in who also plays defense. If Colorado loses and falls to 4-8, that could possibly be a team there. So not only are you watching for playoff implications, but you're also looking for trade partners. If they continue to lose, some of these teams might be looking to kind of sell off some pieces and look to build towards the future.
And Colorado is also a team that last year played terrible at the beginning,
Got hot.
snuck into playoffs, and then made it all the way to the championship. So don't think they're in any condition to give up. That is absolutely not in their DNA. So in their mammoth DNA. So we'll see if they can pull off a win there and keep their season alive. But a lot.
Yeah, massive
going on
win
this
last
weekend.
week also. Yeah. They scored 18, so
amazing.
their best game of the year was last week, so they could just be getting hot. But Phil, is there anything else with this show, or can we shut it down and go take a nap before the Buffalo Bandits play at 10 o'clock?
Yeah, no, we can take a nap. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to take a nap at like 5 and then, wake up to watch all these early games, and then I'll be ready for Buffalo Bandits action. But thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you again to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article drops on Tuesday. Mine drops on Thursday. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.